Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the study of life and the nature of the laws of thought. The conception that we live in a spiritual universe, that God is in us, around us, and for us, and there is nothing against us. That's one of the definitions that Dr. Holmes himself gave of the science of mind. He did say it's a correlation of the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, and the revelation of religion applied to human need and the aspirations of humankind. So we have definitions that I believe everyone can accept because it's said in good English. Our topic today then is the last Sunday of the month. So we have the final topic on freedom, and it's the Tao of freedom, the Tao of freedom, which means in English, Taoism is a spiritual philosophy of going with the flow. So when we say the Tao of freedom, we're talking about going with the flow of freedom. Additional reading today, in addition to what Nil read, I want to take you back to page 25. And this part is a little bit lower down than what he read. It says, to suppose that the creative intelligence of the universe would create man in bondage and leave him bond would be to dishonor the creative power which we call God. To suppose that God could make man as an individual without leaving him to discover himself would be to suppose an impossibility. Individuality must be spontaneous. It can never be automatic. The seed of freedom must be planted in the innermost being of man. But like the prodigal son, man must make the great discovery for himself. You know, we're using man not in the form of a gender, but neuter gender, just because human beings are referred to as man, humankind. That's the end of that reading. So to flow speaks of freedom, because this whole month we talked about freedom and some aspect of freedom. To flow speaks of freedom with wisdom and perfect right action. That's what is meant, going with the flow. You have freedom to move with perfect right action. Going with the flow. Freedom does not mean you should do whatever you want to do. To use your freedom without consequences. Life shows up as a series of selection and consequences. So if we all could do whatever we wanted, we would certainly have a different kind of world to live in. And I don't even want to imagine that, because that idea, I don't want to give any power to and to cause it to take seed. It's just not worth the risk to keep thinking that way. It does not mean then, freedom does not mean that we can do whatever we want. Going with the flow from a spiritual perspective is going with the flow of what is good and right. There's such a force, like a cosmic force, that flows through all beings and all things. Everything that you look at that is of nature is alive, and something flows through that creation. It's that same one divine life that is the life of all life, the being of all beings, the one of all ones. That's the one life that we know is the pure, unadulterated truth. In the science of mind, we would say flowing with the perfect right action, the flow of right action. We love to use that phrase, right action, because too many times people name some action as wrong action. The fact is, in God, nothing is going wrong, but it's hard for us to see beyond what appears to be wrong. So we say right action, wrong action. Eventually, out of all the wrong action, quote unquote, that we say we've had, out comes us in a better frame of mind, better, more prepared for life, more advanced in our consciousness, and more aware of who we really are. I used to say years ago, when I first started in Science of Man, I used to say I'm thankful for all the stinking, lousy years of my past. But I don't say that anymore, because if it hadn't been for those years, and I'm not going to name them anymore, I would not be who I am today. All of this had to be taken to form the me, the way I am today. So freedom is the awareness that things live together for the good of all other things and for the greater good of itself. The Science of Man, as I said, we would be flowing with the perfect right action. And when we live in harmony with right action, that's when we experience a perfect flow of good. We must live so we are aware of perfect right action for ourselves and others. How do we do that? Through our consciousness, through conscious awareness that we are part of that unfolding of perfection. God didn't make a mistake. So if things are not working out for us right now, we pass through that and come out completely filtered as a more perfect expression of the divine, because we get to make up our lives as we go. If we were not human beings that are spontaneous, if we were automatic beings, we would be robots and automatons. But you're not. You are a free, spontaneous being, free to be able to think and choose anything you want, any thought you want. So we must live so we are aware of perfect right action for ourselves and others. That's one of the ways in which Science of Man really gives us that kind of guidance, to live with the awareness of perfect right action for ourselves and others. Can you think right now that you are here because of perfect right action brought you to this spot? I see a few heads going like this. And some people still have a little pain in their neck. They can't go like this. If it hurts, still try it out. Because if it had not been for perfect right action in the past, even if we judge it to be sour and bad and forgettable, it still brought us to this point of awakening. And what a wonderful moment for all of us. What a wonderful moment to feel awakened to the truth of one's being, with the power to make choices that cannot be interfered with until we allow it. We can choose. What is perfect right action for you? What is perfect right action for me? I have to answer that question too. So ask yourself, what is perfect right action for me? You see, you get to make it up. That's the wonderful part. It's not made up for you because you're not a robot. You get to make it up. You get to design your life. You get to think all the experiences that you have into being, into form. So what is perfect right action for myself and others? That is the master question of the month. The whole month of July was we asked the question about ourselves. And so finally we asked the last Sunday in the month, what is the perfect right action for myself and others? So, are you free to do whatever you want? The answer is yes. You're free to do whatever you want. Am I free to do what I want, regardless of how it affects others and even the greater good? Yes, I am. But am I going to do that? You see, Life is like a mirror. When we hold up confusion before the mirror, we're looking at something about ourselves. When we hold up right action over the mirror, guess what? We get clarity on the action we need to take. We get to see that action before we actually take it. That's visualization. That's mental equivalence. So, am I free to do what I want regardless of how it affects others? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to use my freedom to do that. And neither should you. Neither should anybody. Is that what freedom really means? We must take a look at what freedom really means when we can create a world where everyone else can share. What does freedom mean in that? How do we live in a way that works for everyone? We can create a world that works for everyone. That's a main message of the science of mind. We are creating a world that works for everyone. Every time we have a Sunday morning or gathering, or we are teaching people, or we are with people, and we talk about taking right action, we talk about living a life that is self-fulfilling. We talk about awakening to the truth of who you really are, not just a human being on the planet Earth. You have a body, you are not your body. Who is the you that has the body? You ever thought about that? You never think when you have a car, you think that the car is part of you, right? No, you are a separate being from the car, but you use the car to get along. You know what? Your body is your car on two legs. It doesn't have four legs. Well, there is other kinds of beings that have four legs and a tail that shows. And some have tails that don't show. Nevertheless, how do we live in a world that works for everyone? How do we help create that? Because we are always creating something about that can add to the world. It may appear that I can live as freely as I want, regardless of how it may negatively affect others. No, I don't want to live that way. That is not using my freedom wisely. So the truth is that consequences have taught us that happiness comes to one when life is a shared environment. Think about that. Happiness comes to us when life is a shared environment. Our freedom must be used with wisdom, shared. That is when we are rewarded and not suffering consequences. Even for those who appear to be unfettered by abuse or of their freedom, they are not spared of consequences. And it is difficult to judge that by outer evidence. But nevertheless, no one can truly destroy without breaking down themselves. No one can truly destroy without breaking down themselves. Why? Because your happiness cannot be isolated. It is a shared environment. So apparent injustice and careless living never occurs without consequences. The perfect flow of life cannot allow the destruction of nature's laws. Those are laws. There is a divine will, and it is for the good of all. God does not take sides, remember that. Even when by our judgment it appears not to apply in some cases. God does not take sides. God doesn't have any one favorite person. as a lot of religions teach that God have these specially appointed souls. That's not a universal truth. That's a man-made up implementation of manipulating the laws so that they can control those who are not chosen to be the perfect ones. So why believe a lie? Because we need somebody to tell us how to live. No, we don't have to do that. When we learn the truth shall set us free, free of dictatorship, free of people who give us misleading ideas and thoughts, free of people who tell us we are not good thinkers. We can't think for ourselves, so we'll never make a good life. That is a bunch of, you know what, I can't say it in mixed company. That's the truth. We are surrounded by a spirit of living intelligence and eternal givingness, love, goodness, and power, that which is to express itself through us. God wants to express all that goodness through you because God is love and love is God. They're synonymous. And if you are a divine being made in the image and likeness of that thing that is synonymous love, it wants to be love in you, loving you, and love as you. Think about that. If everyone you met was you recognize as pure love, would you have fear? No. Would you worry that they might do something bad to you? No. Would you feel unsafe in any way at all? Would you turn your back on them? Of course you turn your back on them anytime you like because you feel safe. But that's not how we were raised. We were raised to believe in contradiction. We were raised to believe in opposition. We were raised to believe in a pair of opposites. And so we have to overcome this. And in overcoming it, we come to the science of mind. We are surrounded by a spirit of living intelligence and an eternal givingness of love, goodness, and power that wishes to express itself through us. There's a divine urge within us. That's true. You ever feel an urge to know more, to be more, to understand more, to be happier? That's the divine urge. And it's pushing us to try and find that. In other words, it's an itch that wants to be scratched. You ever had an itch that you couldn't scratch? Oh boy, some of those could be doozies. Excuse me. Yes, there's a divine urge within, ever pushing us forward to the goal of self-discovery. We are also surrounded by an immutable law of cause and effect. And because of our divine individuality and the necessity of experience in order to come to a realization of what and who we are subject to the causes which we have set in motion. Remember, we are always setting causes in motion. You are an individuation of God who operates at the level of cause. You're always operating unconsciously at the level of cause. But you want to learn to be consciously working at the level of cause and being aware that cause comes before effects. If you don't like the effects you're having right now, change the causes. In other words, shift the focus from the level of effects to the level of cause, because you were made to cause good to come into your life, to cause good to be experienced, to cause joy to be your final experience, to have happiness. You were made to be happy. You were made to express and feel happiness. When you look at each other and you smile, you know what was happening? You were made to do that. That's why it feels so good. You see, when you smile, what happens? Look at that. Look at that. You're smiling. Why? Because that's our way to feel happy together. We are also surrounded by an immutable law of cause and effect. And because of our divine nature, individuality, and the necessity of experience in order to come to a realization of what and who we are subject to the causes which we have set in motion. All is love, and yet all is law. Both love and law are perfect, and we as individuals can experience only what we really believe and act upon. You'll find that quote on page 496, paragraph 3 of the Science of Mind. There's a divine urge within, ever pushing us forward to the goal of becoming more like God. Yes, you're becoming more like God. That's why I love you. That's why we love each other, because you're becoming more like God. I can't look at somebody without looking into their eyes and seeing something divine. I had to develop that realization within myself, because at one point I used to look away from their eyes and look at their hands to see if they're coming to hit me, to see if they're coming to take advantage of me. I don't do that anymore. I look into people's eyes and I see a reflection of something divine that is in them. The divine law is for the good of all. It is for love. That is why we must use our freedom wisely. Conscious of it or not, that will is always in harmony with life. Love and law are always present in our choices. You cannot avoid that, because every time you choose, you are activating love and law. Elizabeth Gilbert is an author. She said, you need to learn how to select your thoughts just the same way you select your clothing every day. This is a power, a choice you can cultivate, she said. Are you willing to cultivate that choice? I mean, to be conscious of it? Because a lot of us don't know that we actually do that because we just take it for granted. But to be conscious that we do that helps us to do it better. You know what? Awareness is the secret to conscious living. If you are aware of the choices that you are making minute by minute, second by second, you would be so conscious, you would double your awareness of perfection and wholeness. So I say, welcome to the Science of Mind. It is the only thing you can really control, your mind. You can't control anything else. You can control your mind. The most powerful use of freedom is to let divine wisdom have its way in the power and use of your word. Should I say that again? Yes. The most powerful use of freedom is to let divine wisdom have its way in the power and use of your word. Walk with the Tao of freedom. It is the only way you can experience true freedom. So I want you to take time to muse, take time to reflect, take time to be silent, take time to be in awe, take time to contemplate. There it is. Take time to meditate. Take time to be alone. Take time to be quiet. Take time to hear the silence. Shh. Did you hear that? Take time to know yourself, the spirit of you. These are my 10 take times. I try to remember to say them every time I speak in public about our divinity, because that helps us to develop stage by stage, step by step, the power of our own being. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being present here today. And I love you to pieces. Namaste. Thank you. So now we have our usual time for spiritual mind treatment. Now, if you have an issue going on in your life, you can bring that issue into this prayer. And I will pause during the prayer for you to name the healing and the change that you want to experience. And then we'll take that into the treatment. Okay? So if you have issue that you want to bring into spiritual mind treatment, when we get to that part of that prayer for you to speak to yourself about it, not out loud, just whisper it into the prayer, and then I'll close the prayer, and it is done unto you as you believe. Okay, so close your eyes. And remember now that God is present right where we are. God is never absent. So God is always present 100% of itself right where you are. Every one of us is surrounded by that divine presence. And I know that presence is infinite wisdom. It has all the answers. It knows how to bring it into our consciousness and awareness. It is infinite wisdom. It is omnipotence. That means there is nothing it cannot do. It is all powerful. It is omnipresent. That means that it cannot be absent because it is everywhere at the same time. This is the presence that we speak our word into and receive from. So we speak our word now, realizing that we are made in the image and likeness of that one God. Knowing that as microcosms of that one God, we also inherit inside of us all the qualities of the power of thought to change the conditions externally. So now I speak the word for those who have issues that they would like to bring into the awareness of this prayer for healing. Because there is nothing that God cannot do. There's nothing that pure life cannot bring alive, a power of aliveness into. There is no insufficiency that God cannot fill with abundance. There is no lack that God cannot supply more, because its resources are beyond measure, immeasurable. So let us speak our word now in silence. Whatever it is that we want to bring into prayer for healing, just declare it now in silence. Now let us give thanks that having spoken the word, we release it into the power that is able to change it. We have spoken our word into that light that can light up the darkness, into that source of supply that can make things more sufficient, efficient, and abundant. Let us give thanks for the power of the spoken word, for the word becomes flesh and dwells with us. The word turns into love, experience, abundance, and prosperity. The word. We have spoken our word. So we are so thankful for this power and this system and this method of praying with deliberate, clear, specific, conscious knowing. I'm thankful for this teaching that taught us how. And I release these words now to that power that is greater than I am. I release these words to that immutable source of life that gives life to life, that brings all things to full fruition. I release these words with complete trust, and faith, knowing that all is well already. Please join me and let's say together, and so it is. Amen. So before we go, I want to share something with you that I wrote some time ago, but I discovered it this morning. It's about fear. A lot of people know that fear is forgetting everything is all right, or fear is something else. But fear is forgetting everything is all right. False evidence appearing real. Frequent emotional annoyance regurgitated. That's fear. Fervent emotional anxiety realized. That is fear. So we want to overcome that. And to give you an opportunity to walk with God, I have written the 23rd Psalm in the Science Mind language. Here it is. The Lord is my sustainer and my guide. All that I possibly need has been provided. I rest in pleasant comfort and infinite potential. I am eternally refreshed. I am guided into right choices and right action so that I serve the highest level. Though darkness, disappointment, even death appear, I remain at the center of peace, for I am assured of my oneness with God. Before me is prepared a feast, and even in the midst of pain, I am honored with great abundance as a member of the royal household. My life is supple and sweet, with the oil of divine love. I overflow in goodness and grace all the days of my life, and I live in divine radiance forever. And so it is. Thank you all. God bless you. And I wish for you a happy day. Until we see you again, be happy, be joyful. Know that all is well in your life, and it shall be done. Don't contradict it. If you say you know it now, don't go back to the old habit of being afraid and saying it's not going to happen. Because you neutralize what you just said, all right? Stick with the firm assurance in your mind. And Carol gave us some strong words to remember, that we can stand tall in roughest winds, that we can face anything, because we have the opportunity to really move forward. Okay? God bless you all. And so it is.